And I like to think of this metaphor of a tree, that when you cut the tree open, you see these rings that have accumulated in the tree over its lifetime. And I'm quite interested taking that metaphor into my practice and asking what are the things that kind of collect inside the body over time. I'm Himan van der Merwe. I would describe myself as an interdisciplinary artist, performance maker and artistic researcher from South Africa, currently based here in Vienna. There are certain things that definitely influence the questions that I grapple with today as an artist. And these are questions surrounding belonging, memory, identity, things that are kind of really interwoven in the societal fabric or the social fabric of South Africa, or growing up in the country. And so for me these have been really interesting topics, and more so that what I find quite interesting is this idea or this question that might seem simple, but the question of what remains. I come from a theater background. I studied theater and film, and so I would say initially I kind of approached the idea of making quite through these individual lenses of theater, of film, of writing. But as the time went on and as I discovered new voices and perspectives, I think I started to find this concept of instability. I found this concept quite interesting, and not only did I take this concept into these themes that I investigate, so identity, belonging, kind of my body, and an instability of my embodied histories and nuances, but also into my art making, where I previously viewed it quite individually. I now started to look at the instability of disciplinary boundaries and how different disciplines can start to bleed into one another. So for example, not only speaking of performance, but asking how can performance perhaps become installation, can become sound, can become research, or from another angle, how can writing become performance, become sound. So it's always kind of playing on the horizontal plane with different forms and expressions. I like to collect different fragments, objects, things that I find have this residue that is lingering in the air. And so I started to collect various fragments, photographs on my journeys to work in Vienna, documents that I needed to travel from South Africa to Austria, and smaller other objects I found along the way. And I took all of this and formed kind of a bigger archive, and later asked the question, like, what remains? What remains through all of these processes, through these random encounters, through these experiences that the body needs to go through? And at the end, I developed a journal that reflects on this whole process. But the journal was created kind of through this experimental, open conversation of starting with performance and moving into writing, and then moving into photography, and then moving back to writing, and then to a different form. So it kind of took its own forms as I listened to the process myself, and remained open for the process to take the form that it wants to take. Yeah. I recently discovered these old photographs that were taken apparently in 1950, 1960 by my grandparents, and these simply laid in my cupboard for 8 years undiscovered, and they keep this, or they retain this kind of mystery to them, or this sense of lingering, something that lingers within them. And this was a start for a new project that I'm working on. I tend to not only use my voice, so my voice is of course a big instrument that I use myself, but I also try to experimentally investigate what sound does to the creative process. So then I tend to find random objects or things that can produce some soundscape for the work and give an atmosphere to work with. Coming to Vienna, it was definitely an enriching process up till now, but of course also challenging to find your community. And so that was one incredible thing I find about Question Me and Answer, is that it really not only gives you the opportunity to create projects or to get creatively going, but it also introduces you to people in the sector in Vienna, but also to newcomers in Vienna that are also artists. And through this, collaborations and new ideas can start to grow. And I find that completely, immensely fascinating, and I'm excited to see where that might go.